Friday morning, May 7th, 2021. The East Coast wakes up to clear skies and normal traffic. Commuters merge onto highways in the pre-dawn darkness, coffee in hand, minds already at work. Parents drop kids at school, idling in carpool lanes. Delivery trucks make their rounds through suburban neighborhoods and city streets alike. Gas stations operate exactly as they did yesterday, and the day before that, and every day for as long as anyone can remember. Pumps are full. Prices are displayed on bright LED signs. Credit cards slide in and out without thought, without hesitation, without the slightest consideration that this transaction might ever be unavailable. No one questions whether fuel will be there. The assumption is invisible, built into the architecture of daily life like plumbing or electricity. Cars need gas. Gas is always available. This is how it works. This is how it has always worked. The motion of an entire society depends on this single presumption remaining true. And on this Friday morning, no one has any reason to doubt it. The infrastructure hums quietly in the background, unnoticed and unappreciated. Colonial Pipeline carries 2.5 million barrels of fuel per day from refineries in Texas to distribution points across the Southeast and up the Atlantic coast. It supplies roughly 45% of all fuel consumed on the East Coast, nearly half of everything that moves through gas stations from Florida to New Jersey. Gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, all flowing underground at 5 miles per hour through a pipeline system built in the 1960s, a relic of American industrial ambition, now running on computer systems and automated controls. Most people have never heard of it. They don't need to. They've never needed to. The system is designed to be invisible, to function without input, to deliver without drama. You pull up to a pump, you fill your tank, you leave. You never think about the hundreds of miles of pipe beneath your feet, or the control rooms monitoring pressure and flow. The complexity that makes this possible remains hidden, until it stops. Until something breaks the rhythm that makes modern life possible. Early Friday morning, Colonial Pipeline shuts down its entire system. A ransomware attack has compromised its computer networks, locking operators out of their own systems. Out of an abundance of caution, the company halts all pipeline operations rather than risk further damage or loss of control. The fuel already in the pipe stops moving. New fuel stops entering. The announcement goes out through official channels and trade publications, through industry newsletters and government bulletins. Most people don't see it. Morning news leads with other stories: politics, weather, local crime. The shutdown is mentioned briefly, if at all, usually in the business segment that most viewers skip. Industry experts interviewed on cable news say it's temporary. They've dealt with disruptions before. Hurricanes, equipment failures, planned maintenance. The system has weathered it all. Fuel stations have reserves in underground tanks. Trucks can reroute from other pipelines. The system has redundancy built in. Everything will be fine. The experts sound confident because they have no reason not to be. The infrastructure has never failed like this before. By Saturday, the story begins to spread. Not through official warnings or emergency broadcasts, but through conversation and social sharing. Someone mentions it at a barbecue. A news segment airs during the afternoon. Social media posts multiply as people share screenshots of articles and express vague concern. People start thinking about their tanks in a way they normally don't. Some are already low, having put off filling up until next week. Others have half a tank or more, but suddenly feel uneasy about that number. Better to fill up now, just in case. It's not panic, it's precaution. It's rational individual decision-making that will, in aggregate, create its own crisis. Stations report slightly higher traffic, but nothing unusual for a weekend when people run errands and take day trips. Attendants don't notice anything strange. Pumps keep running, tanks keep filling, transactions complete normally. But the calculation has shifted slightly in thousands of minds across the region. The assumption is still there, still functioning, but it's been touched, it's been questioned, and once questioned, it becomes fragile. Sunday morning, lines appear. Not everywhere, not uniformly, but at certain stations near highways, at busy intersections, at places people already go because they're convenient or cheap or simply familiar. 5 cars becomes 10, 10 becomes 20. Wait times stretch from 2 minutes to 10, then 15, then longer. Drivers sit in their cars, engines running to keep the air conditioning going, burning the fuel they're waiting to replace. Some stations run out of premium first, then mid-grade. Regular is still flowing, still available, but now it's the only option. Signs go up hastily, regular only. Drivers shrug and fill up anyway. It's an inconvenience, not a crisis, a minor deviation from routine. But the lines keep growing. People driving past see the lines and make a split-second decision to join them. Better to wait now than need it later. Better to have a full tank than trust that gas will be available tomorrow. Each individual decision makes sense. Each one is defensible, and each one makes the problem worse. The system is beginning to strain under the weight of changed behavior, not yet from actual shortage, but from the fear of shortage that creates its own reality. By Monday, stations start closing. Not because they're forced to, not because of government order or corporate decision, because there's nothing left to sell. Pumps are dry. Underground tanks sit empty, drained by 3 days of elevated demand and deliveries that haven't arrived. White plastic bags appear over pump handles, fluttering in the breeze like surrender flags. Handwritten signs taped to windows. Out of gas, no fuel, closed until further notice. Some more apologetic, sorry for the inconvenience. Drivers pull in, see the signs, and leave. Some try the next station down the road, then the next, then the one after that. Tanks that were half full on Friday are now showing warning lights. The yellow light appears on the dashboard and creates a small spike of anxiety that wasn't there before. The assumption has been replaced by a question that carries real weight. Where can I get gas? Not where's the cheapest gas, or where's the closest gas, but simply, where is there any gas at all? The question is unfamiliar. The answer is increasingly unclear. No one has clear answers. News reports conflict with each other and with official statements that seem to lag behind reality. Some say the pipeline will restart in days. Others say weeks. Anonymous sources suggest it could be longer. Government officials urge people not to hoard fuel, which only confirms that people are hoarding fuel and makes everyone who isn't feel like they should start. Gas station owners don't know when their next delivery is coming. They call their suppliers and get vague answers or no answers at all. Truck drivers are waiting for loads that aren't ready, sitting in parking lots at distribution centers that have nothing to distribute. The fuel exists. It's just not moving. It's sitting in tanks at refineries hundreds of miles away. It's stuck in the pipeline, motionless. It's in the wrong places while the right places run dry. Information spreads slowly and unevenly, passing through too many channels, getting distorted at each step. Rumors fill the gaps left by absent facts. Someone heard this station has gas. Someone else heard that station will restock tonight. Someone's cousin works at a terminal and says deliveries are coming tomorrow. None of it is reliable. None of it can be verified. The confusion is worse than the shortage because it prevents rational planning. People can't make good decisions without good information, and good information has become a scarce resource too. Demand multiplies irrationally. People who normally fill up once a week are trying to fill up every day, sometimes twice a day. Drivers with 3/4 of a tank are topping off, unwilling to let the level drop even slightly. Others are filling spare containers, jerry cans, plastic jugs, even trash bags in some reported cases, anything that holds liquid, anything that might store fuel for later. Station owners report customers buying fuel they don't need yet, just to have it, just to feel secure. The infrastructure wasn't designed for this. Even if the pipeline were running at full capacity, it couldn't keep pace with panic-driven demand that has doubled or tripled overnight. The psychology of scarcity creates its own reality, independent of actual supply. Empty stations stay empty longer because people avoid them, concentrating demand at the few stations still operating. Full stations become empty faster because everyone goes there at once. The system is breaking under behavior, not just under the initial disruption. The technical problem, the pipeline shutdown, has spawned a human problem that is harder to solve and impossible to engineer around. You can restart a pipeline. You can't restart trust. By Wednesday, the landscape has changed in visible, unmistakable ways. Driving through any mid-sized city on the East Coast reveals the new normal. 3 out of 4 stations are closed. Bags cover pumps at Exxon, Shell, BP, independent stations. Signs are dark. Electronic price boards are blank. Parking lots are empty, except for the occasional confused driver who pulls in before noticing the closure. The few stations still operating have lines stretching down the block, sometimes wrapping around corners, creating traffic problems on streets not designed for queuing vehicles. Cars idle for an hour or more, sometimes 2. Drivers check apps obsessively, refresh gas-finding websites, call friends and family members, share tips about which stations might have fuel. Someone posts that a station on Route 29 just got a delivery. 20 cars arrive within minutes. Some drive 10 miles out of their way based on a rumor, based on third-hand information, based on hope. They arrive to find the station already dry, the delivery already consumed, the line already dispersed. Empty pumps don't look dramatic. There's no fire, no explosion, no visible damage. Just absence. Just waiting. Just the quiet realization that something fundamental has stopped working, and no one knows when it will start again. People start making different choices about how and when to move. Trips are canceled. Weekend plans, family visits, shopping excursions to stores more than a few miles away. Work-from-home requests increase sharply as people with office jobs ask to stay home rather than burn precious fuel on commutes. Parents carpool where they used to drive separately, coordinating complex schedules to minimize trips. Non-essential errands are postponed indefinitely. Dentist appointments rescheduled, gym memberships unused. Some people simply stop driving unless absolutely necessary, making mental calculations about whether each potential trip is worth the fuel it would consume. Public transit sees a brief uptick in ridership where it exists, but many East Coast areas lack robust alternatives. The car is not optional. It's infrastructure. It's not a luxury or a convenience, but the foundation on which everything else is built. Without fuel, the entire system of movement stalls. Grocery stores worry about deliveries. Shelves stay stocked for now, but managers watch their loading docks anxiously. Hospitals monitor ambulance fuel levels, establishing protocols for rationing if necessary. Emergency services prioritize their reserves, cutting back on non-critical uses. Everything still works, but only barely, and only because people are moving less. The society hasn't collapsed. It's just contracted, pulled inward, become smaller and more cautious. Essential workers face impossible choices. Nurses, EMTs, utility workers, sanitation employees, people who can't work from home and can't stop showing up. They burn fuel getting to jobs that keep everyone else's lives running, that maintain the basic functions of organized society. Some stations reserve pumps for emergency vehicles and medical personnel, hanging signs that say first responders only or essential workers priority. But enforcement is inconsistent and often depends on an honor system that breaks down under pressure. A nurse in Virginia waits in line for 2 hours before her night shift, arriving late, exhausted before her work even begins. A home health aide in North Carolina misses appointments because she can't find gas, leaving elderly patients without medication management or wound care. A paramedic in Georgia spends his day off driving from station to station, trying to ensure he can get to work tomorrow. These failures are quiet. No one sees them on the news. They don't generate dramatic footage or viral moments. They happen in individual moments, scattered across thousands of lives, invisible except to those directly affected. The system depends on these people showing up. Hospitals depend on it. Nursing homes depend on it. The basic infrastructure of care and emergency response depends on it. Now they can't. Now the fuel shortage is creating health consequences, safety consequences, human consequences that compound with each passing day. Temporary measures prove inadequate to the scale of the problem. Tanker trucks reroute from other regions, from the Midwest, from the Gulf Coast, but there aren't enough of them to replace pipeline capacity. The pipeline was the primary artery, moving millions of barrels per day. Smaller vessels can't replace that volume, no matter how many you deploy. Some fuel arrives by barge to coastal terminals, an expensive and slow alternative, but ports aren't equipped for the scale of operation. Terminals lack the storage capacity. Distribution networks aren't designed around marine delivery. Government agencies waive certain regulations to speed delivery, hours of service rules for truck drivers, restrictions on fuel transport through certain areas, but the bottleneck is physical, not bureaucratic. You can eliminate paperwork, but you can't eliminate distance. You can't drive fuel from Texas to Virginia overnight. You can't conjure infrastructure that doesn't exist. Meanwhile, the pipeline remains offline. Engineers are working around the clock. Progress is reported in daily updates. Systems are being rebuilt, tested, verified. But fuel isn't moving yet. The pipe is still static. Stations that reopened on Tuesday with a single delivery close again on Wednesday when that supply is exhausted. The relief was temporary, a false dawn that made the ongoing shortage feel worse by comparison. Frustration builds without turning into panic, simmering just below the surface. People aren't rioting. They're not fighting in gas lines or storming closed stations. They're just tired. Tired of checking apps every hour. Tired of waiting in lines that consume the time they'd normally spend on productive activity. Tired of not knowing when things will return to normal, or if normal means the same thing anymore. Social media fills with photos of empty stations, long lines, price gouging complaints. Screenshots of apps showing 0 available stations within 20 miles. Some stations raise prices sharply, $4, $5, $6 per gallon, exploiting desperation. Others keep them steady and run out faster, rewarding early arrivals and punishing those who hesitate. There's no good option. No choice that doesn't involve either overpaying or going without. Trust in official statements erodes steadily. People stop listening to reassurances that the situation is improving when their lived experience contradicts those claims. They believe what they see: empty pumps, closed stations, hours wasted. The anger is diffuse and directionless, lacking a clear target. There's no single villain to blame, no individual responsible, no corporation you can boycott or politician you can vote against. Just a system that stopped working, a system everyone depended on without realizing how fragile that dependence made them. By Thursday, May 13th, fuel begins returning in meaningful quantities. The pipeline restarts in segments, first in the south, then moving northward. Deliveries resume unevenly across the region. Some areas recover quickly, almost overnight. Stations in major cities restock first: Atlanta, Charlotte, Richmond, receiving priority in distribution networks designed around population density. Coastal regions see tanker deliveries, expensive but effective. Prices stabilize slightly, dropping from panic levels but not returning to pre-shortage rates. Lines shorten in certain places. Apps show green dots appearing where there had been nothing but red. The crisis is ending, but not uniformly, not fairly. A station in Atlanta reopens while one 30 miles away remains closed. Drivers in Richmond find gas while those in Charlotte keep searching. Suburban areas recover while rural ones wait. The recovery follows the same infrastructure that created the shortage: pipelines, distribution centers, major highways, population centers. Places the system serves best receive relief first. Rural areas wait longer. Smaller stations get served last. Independent operators without corporate supply chains scramble for whatever they can find. Relief is real, tangible, measurable, but it's also a reminder of who gets prioritized when resources are scarce, who the system is built to serve first when not everyone can be served at once. Others keep waiting. Days stretch longer in places the infrastructure serves last, in communities that exist on the margins of distribution networks. Small towns off major highways, exurbs at the end of supply chains. Areas dependent on secondary distribution routes that only receive fuel after primary markets are satisfied. Residents watch news reports of normalcy returning elsewhere, while their local stations stay dark, pumps still bagged, parking lots still empty. Resentment builds privately, in conversations at kitchen tables and checkout lines. Why them first? Why not here? Why are we always last? The answers are logistical, not personal. Distribution efficiency, volume economics, pipeline routing decisions made decades ago. But that doesn't soften the experience. That doesn't make someone feel better about missing work for the third day. People miss work because they can't get there. Families cancel plans that have been set for months. Someone's prescription doesn't get picked up because the pharmacy is 15 miles away and the tank is too empty to risk the trip. Someone else misses a medical appointment, postponing care that shouldn't be postponed. These consequences don't make headlines. They don't generate think pieces or congressional hearings. They accumulate in private, in the gap between what the news says is happening and what people are actually experiencing. Trust erodes further, not just in the fuel system, but in the assumption that everyone is equally served when things go wrong, that the recovery will reach everyone at the same time, that your location doesn't determine whether you matter. Gas is available again. The infrastructure hums in the background, invisible once more, returned to its proper state of being unnoticed and unappreciated. Commutes resume without thought. Deliveries return to schedule. Life moves forward as if nothing happened, as if 9 days in May were just an aberration, a historical footnote, a story people will tell but not dwell on. But the assumption is different now. It's no longer unconscious. It's no longer absolute. People remember what it felt like when the pumps went dry. They remember the uncertainty, the waiting, the calculations about whether to risk a trip or stay home. They remember the quiet realization that the system they depend on is fragile, held together by things they don't control and barely understand. For 9 days in May 2021, fuel disappeared from the East Coast, not because of war, not because of natural disaster, not because of resource depletion, but because a pipeline stopped moving and behavior spiraled and the infrastructure couldn't absorb the shock. The gas came back, the pipeline restarted, the crisis resolved.
But the trust didn't return. That part stayed broken. And somewhere in the back of everyone's mind, filed away but not forgotten, there's now a question that wasn't there before. A question that surfaces whenever the tank drops below half. What happens the next time something stops? What happens when the assumption fails again? Because now they know it can fail. Now they know that the invisible system that makes everything possible is more fragile than anyone wanted to believe. And that knowledge, once gained, cannot be unlearned.